Alrighty, welcome to WITS, What It Takes to Succeed show. I'm your host, Igor Zdorovyak. By trade, I'm the Technical Business Transformation Project Program Portfolio Manager. With expertise in PMI, Scrum Agile, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, ITIL, and other slew of methodologies, techniques, and practices. And for many years, I've been writing what it takes to succeed and interviewing leaders and experts in their fields, and now I'm bringing you to the masses, as Tim Ferriss would say, on a new platform. And my first guest is the author of the most exceptional book that I have read so far, The Responsibility Process. Fortune magazine called Avery's first book, Teamwork is an Individual Skill, Getting Your Work Done, Sharing Responsibility, the only book on teamwork you ever need to read. And Dr. Avery is also a host of the Leadership Gift Program, a popular e-learning system for leaders, coaches worldwide who wants to master responsibility. Welcome, Christopher.
Igor. Yeah, Igor, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to this time with you.
So when you, Christopher, were in your mid-20s, you uncovered the leading question in your life: how I can be both outward successful and inwardly fulfilled. One good soul-searching question can be better than dozens of right answers. Can you describe your motivation for writing the Responsibility Process book?
Wow, that's a long leap from in my 20s having that question to writing the Responsibility Process book, but I can pin them together. I knew that in my 20s, I knew that I was a smart guy, but I also felt that I had some significant flaws. And those flaws were psychological in nature. They were, lots of us come from upbringings where we're taught things that aren't necessarily, really useful or effective. And so I felt that I had some just behavioral triggers that allowed me to not be as compassionate and empathetic with other people as I wanted to be. In fact, I could be downright mean. And I couldn't change these things. I didn't know how to change it just by making a decision. Okay, I'm not going to be that way anymore. It would just come out. And so I actually set in search of, what I called then my own integrity, my own being whole. And that set me on, a lifetime search to understand things like, human triggers and the sort of the fact that, our subconscious controls about 99% of who and what we are. And there can be a lot of yuck hiding in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that search eventually led me to this little research team in Austin, Texas that was discovering a pattern in our minds about how we operate or how we think when things go wrong. In other words, how our minds process thoughts about taking or avoiding cause and effect or responsibility in our lives. And I believe that was, that soul-searching question in my 20s that led me to find that little research project, because it's become the most powerful model of normal psychology that I've ever been introduced to. And I already had a doctorate in organizational science and leadership when I was introduced to the model. And it's become very important to me and my life's work. So there's the connection that from there to finally writing the book. This material is very challenging. And somebody said to me recently, gosh, Christopher, most people research a subject, write the book, and then go out and speak and do workshops on it. I said, you've been writing and speaking and doing workshops on the responsibility process for more than a dozen years, and you're just now writing the book. How come? And my answer was that I didn't feel ready to write the book previously. So here it is. It's out. It was published in October. People have been asking me for 10 years, when are you going to write the book on the responsibility process? And I finally felt ready last year.
Well, I thank you for writing this book.
Thank you.
Now, if we can go a little bit more deeply in your book, there's about seeing differences clearly through 3 different tools. If you can briefly describe what those tools are.
Sure. So the tools that we present in the book are, first, the responsibility process, which is something that you may recognize. It's a poster of a stack of words that we have been promoting for years and invite people to use. We invite people to download the PDF of this poster and print it. So this is called the responsibility process, and this is that discovery of the pattern of ways that we process thoughts about taking or avoiding responsibility. So it turns out that all of us are really good at denial, at defensiveness, at resistance, at saying, no, that's not true. We're really good at blaming when things go wrong, even if we've been taught we shouldn't. We're really good at justifying and making excuses. Just think about these two. How many of us have been involved in multi-million-dollar investments in ongoing conflicts and meetings at work, where those meetings for weeks or months at a time never got past blaming and justifying each other about the problem. We're all good at beating ourselves up, thinking that we're not good enough or we shouldn't have tried to solve a problem or do something. And we all actually get stuck in a mental state where we feel burdened or trapped, which we call obligation. And we are all completely hardwired to learn and grow and overcome any challenge and never have to deal with that challenge again, and that's the mental state of responsibility. So this is the first tool.
Right.
It's an amazing breakthrough, I believe. It offers the first how-to approach for understanding, teaching, and taking personal responsibility. Igor, the second tool is called the 3 keys to responsibility. And the 3 keys, which are actually explained right here on the back, right down here on the handout or on the poster, the 3 keys are the mental abilities that you and I and everyone is born with that we can develop like a muscle for accessing and unlocking this unconscious process called the responsibility process in our minds. And those keys are intention, our powers of intention, being intentional, which could, you could substitute words like goal, strategy, vision, objective, dreams, drive, right? So intention is about free will, making choices and pursuing things that we want. So that's the first key. The second key is awareness. And awareness has been called the first key to change. So awareness is simply becoming more and more aware of what it's like to be me when I'm operating from one of these mental states, so that I can catch myself and change, because I know that operating in those mental states doesn't help me learn or grow, and it allows me to keep the problem. So the first key is intention, the second key is awareness, and the third key is confront, which is a bold word, and make sure that you understand what I mean by confront. Confront means to face. So if this is a mirror, here I am looking in the mirror, I'm confronting myself. And so it turns out it takes courage to really practice responsibility, because we have to be willing to correct erroneous beliefs or assumptions or limiting beliefs that we have. So I had to do, for instance, a lot of work to find out, what it was in me that made me behave in ways that I didn't like when I was in my 20s. I had to confront, a lot of stuff in myself. So as a key to responsibility, confront doesn't mean to have conflict with other people. Confront means to be willing to face ourselves and to look at our own to look at our own cause-effect assumptions in our mind, even dig stuff up out of our unconscious or subconscious in order to examine it. So those are the three keys. What's cool is they are all natural mental abilities we all have, and we can develop them. So that's the second tool, the three keys to responsibility. The third tool is a game. We call it the Catch Sooner game. And the Catch Sooner game is a simple, 4-step, repeatable process that you can carry with you throughout your whole life that you can use to change any habit or behavior. And so when you put these three tools together, you can start building a responsibility practice where you can become clearer and clearer and clearer about your ownership of your own world, of your own reality. And when you master responsibility, you master your life and enjoy tremendous amounts of freedom and choice and power.
No, that's great.
Yeah, so those are the three tools that the book is built around.
Now, you mentioned also that knowing about something different from putting it into practice. So I guess this is the first principle of success. Can you elaborate more on that?
Well, yeah. So I talk about the first principle of success in the book as being to take 100% responsibility, which gurus throughout the ages and experts have told us that we should take 100% responsibility. But they don't say how to do it. So that's why I think this is the first how-to. And then what I've learned is that just teaching people about this isn't enough for them to change. And what I've learned over the years is that people actually have to dedicate themselves to what I call a responsibility practice in order to get the power and the benefit from these three tools. Just like anything that you feel is important and want to invest in. So if you want to be a good cook, you practice. If you want to be great at yoga, you practice. If you want to be a great runner, you practice. And the cool thing about practicing responsibility is that we have the opportunity to practice every day, all day long, because this pattern is about what happens in our mind when things go wrong. And I don't know about you, but in my life, things go wrong all day long, starting the first thing in the morning.
Yep.
Right? And then we have all those emergency meetings at work. And we have those emergency meetings because we've got a whoops, a problem. And how we respond to these upsets is what responsibility is all about. So famous Austrian psychiatrist and concentration camp survivor said, in between stimulus and response is a space, and in that space is choice. What happens when something goes wrong is that our mind is actually emotionally hijacked, and our mind helps us cope with the anxiety, with the frustration by taking us to the bottom of this model. And if we accept the answer it gives us, then we use all of our wits and all of our intelligence to try and prove how much of a victim we are. But the issue is that we'll never, ever solve any problem, which means we get to keep that upset until we get here. So
that's what one of my follow-up questions was that how can one take responsibility without having the blame of things on yourself?
So laying blame on self is what we call shame, right? So we first want to learn that blaming others, even if they did the thing, right? Blaming others keeps us stuck in a powerless mental state. The same is true of blaming ourselves. that we can't get to a place of powerful thinking and powerful choices until we get past those. So the best way to think about how can you take responsibility without blaming yourself is to think about the fact that true responsibility has nothing to do with the past. It has to do with this moment forward.
Right.
So, yes, I did that stupid thing yesterday, right? It doesn't mean I'm stupid, and it doesn't mean that I have to beat myself up for the rest of my life, because I'm a human being. Human beings make mistakes. We also learn from them. So I can move forward. So that's a powerful part of our practice too, because so many people are very conditioned to beat themselves up, to feel guilty and ashamed, and our culture likes to shame people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So when I say that responsibility is a practice, I get to spend a lot of time reminding myself, right? Yes, you did that. You made that mistake, but you don't have to identify with that for the rest of your life. You can let it go, take the lesson, and move on. Yeah, good question.
So true.
Yeah.
Now, I like how you lay out your booklet. You follow the best practices based formula, and it shows. Tell them what you are going to talk about it, and then tell them what you talked about it. Now, where did you develop this writing style? Did your editor suggest it, or you always wrote this way?
Interesting. So, I guess my answer is that I do have a doctorate, and I did spend years as an academic. Some time back, I decided to start a blog many, many years ago. And I did hire an editor to help. Her job was to de-PhDize me. In other words, take the academic style out of my writing, and help me learn how to just write, for people's understanding. So I would say the most important thing is, no, my editor didn't suggest it. In fact, when I pursued editing, one of the things I pursued was whether I needed help absolutely, reshaping the book. And the editorial folks that I talked to said, no, this is in great shape. We just need to, do copy editing and proofing. So the writing style emerged because I had a group of about 100 people in a Google forum that were reading chapter by chapter as I wrote chapters and giving me feedback. Yeah. And the first 2 or 3 chapters, the feedback was really brutal. What their voices did for me was it gave me an audience in my head that as I continued to write, I had all of those objections, those feedback, the concerns, I had those in my head. And I just started writing for a very small group of those people in my head. So one writing trick is that you should always write for one person. Be thinking of one person in your audience and write to that person. And so I did that. And interestingly enough, the subsequent chapters didn't get banged on nearly as much by people.
So that was a good learning curve from you.
Yeah. So mostly what I try to do is I try to speak directly to you, the reader.
And you certainly did that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, Christopher, you have a section in one chapter called "Control the Sail, Not the Wind." It's 6 words, which is a great summary of the concept for the personal responsibility. Now, before I'll ask you to describe it, in Agile methodology, we utilize stories to describe the requirements. And in May 2000, 2017 in the Project Management Institute New Jersey Chapter Symposium. Tom Cadley, who is a host of Software Project and Measurement Cast, and also an author of Project Management Best Practices, Tools, Techniques, explained that we should describe a story in 6 words, like who, what, where, why, how, and where it followed up. And basically it correlates to your chapter. If you can describe what the controls the sail and not the wind summarizes this concept of personal responsibility, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. So in one of the chapters, one of the early chapters, I kind of skipped through recorded history, looking at how history and culture and religion and philosophy and science treats the idea of personal responsibility, and actually discovered that little quote has come down through the last 2,500 years by various people, including a very famous quote from the famous sausage maker Jimmy Dean.
No, really?
Who talked about his success in business.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I can't control the direction of forces in the market and the environment, but I'm the one that's in charge of setting my sail.
Yeah, that's right.
So the control the sail, not the wind, is perfect, because it turns out that the issue of cause and effect in the responsibility process is that in all of these positions, we're defending ourselves as victims of something happening outside of us over which we have no control. So as long as we believe that we are in a position of effect in the cause-effect equation, and this is why technical people like this so much, because it gets down to cause and effect.
Yep.
Right? So as long as we believe we're at effect, we're in the position of effect, and the cause is out there, our assumption, no matter how smart we are, or how motivated we are, or how educated we are, our assumption is there's nothing we can do. Right? And so that's why gurus throughout history have said that learning to take 100% responsibility is the first principle of success. Is we realize how easily you and I and everyone watching this or listening to it, we realize how easily we all get stuck. Mm-hmm. And the stuck is just a perception of cause and effect. Right? And we can shift that perception. So the control the sail, not the wind, reminds me that I can be mad at the president, or I can be mad at this company or that airline, or I can be mad at the subway system, or the other team or the other department, but I actually don't control what they do.
Yep, so true.
Right. All I can do is set my sail.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, my son I have a son who's a teenager, and sometimes he reacts in a certain manner. Now, he's a good kid. And when he said, you made me do this, or you made me do that, I always try to teach the personal responsibility by saying, did I make you do that, or did you try to react that? Or did you react that way?
Yes.
And I also like how you include the historical aspect of personal responsibility. If we don't learn from history, we're bound to make the same mistakes. And that's you went into the attribution research in the field of psychology. And in my writings, I also try to get the readers like the concept of mindset by Carol Dweck. I love how you structure the book, where you have, after each section, you have responsibility practice. It makes the readers think and go through the motion of analyzing their beliefs and reinforce each point of your responsibility process. And we would have this interview a little bit earlier if we didn't have those responsibility practices. But to tell you the truth, it wouldn't made such a big impact as it did. So this is a very good of you to put that. When did you notice this type of teaching? If you put those responsibilities to practice instead of reiterating items to the reader, that it would have such a big impact on learning and self-evaluation for your readers?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Just going to, for those who are watching, every section of the book has an area that's formatted differently called responsibility practice.
Yep.
That invites you to take the ideas in that section and put them into practice in your life right away. And there's 85 of them throughout the book. So where do they come from? This group of people who were giving me feedback, some of them said, the single most powerful thing that I loved about your book, Teamwork is an Individual Skill, and here's an old copy I've been carrying for a long time, is that after every section, you have an area called a personal challenge and a team challenge, in which you take that idea and help the reader think about how to immediately start using it.
Yes.
And this person essentially told me, if you're not going to do that same thing in the responsibility process book, then it's just going to be another, sort of book of ideas or interesting ideas, but not that useful to me, not that valuable.
Sure. No, so it was a great idea to put it back in whatever works.
Yeah.
Include that. Now, in project management, we have a Recce matrix, which is especially useful in clarifying roles and responsibilities in a close metrics environment. And Recce stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. You make a distinction. In fact, you dedicate a whole chapter of responsibility does not equal accountability. And you say that, remember that there is a difference between 100% being responsible and taking 100% responsibility. Can you explain that difference?
Sure. So first, I've been asked many times if I can explain the Recce chart, and my answer is no. And that's because there are millions of definitions and use of the words responsibility and accountability. And in most cultures around the world where we have two different words, there are some languages where they don't have two words, and I tell those people in those countries that they're lucky. So Sweden doesn't have two words, and Spanish doesn't have two different words. But many of our languages have two words the way we do in English, responsibility and accountability. And the dictionary doesn't even help because they're self-referential, right? It's a self-referring loop.
Yep.
And so what that means is we use both words for all those millions of meanings. And I have a lot of fun with that in the book in terms of, when someone says, when is someone going to take responsibility and accountability for this cause I believe in, you could speculate on all the different things they mean, right? Somebody should change. Somebody should do something. Somebody should get fired. Somebody should step up. Somebody should make an investment. What do they mean when they say that? So what I've come to understand is that there's two big meanings, Igor, that are important. And one big meaning is that there's the act of negotiating a performance expectation and an agreement around that, which we do in business, but we also do it in other relationships. And I tend to use the word accountability for that because the roots of the word accountability have to do with making an account, telling a story about what happened. Mm-hmm. So accountability is between us. And for me, responsibility, the root of the word responsibility is literally the ability to respond to a challenge, to what happened, to a mistake, to a problem. And so the meaning there is an internal and subjective feeling of ownership that comes and goes, that's different, right? So, you know, you're on a team and other people don't share the same sense of ownership, right, for the work that you might, and that bothers you. Or maybe you're the one that isn't as interested in what the team is doing as others. That's been true for me at times. So we have to get these two meanings. But then you asked me about the difference between being a responsible person and taking 100% responsibility, right? You asked me that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on to your hat. One of the things that we have to learn in order to master responsibility is that it's beyond being good and doing what you're supposed to. So our society tells us what it means to be a responsible person. And being a responsible person means that you conform to the expectations of being a good citizen in your society, right? So you stay in school, you learn, you go to college if you have the opportunity, you get a good job, you join a community and settle down, you join a family often and settle down, and you start being a good contributor to society. Generally, that's what it means to be responsible. However, there's an enormous gap between being a responsible person and taking 100% responsibility in your life. So you can be a generally responsible person and get away with tons of victimhood, blame and justify and shame and obligation. One of the things that pains my heart is that every day I see smart, motivated, caring people who feel stuck in jobs and lives that they don't want and don't know how to change. And a primary contributor is that they've been so well taught and conditioned to be a responsible person, but they don't actually know how to practice responsibility in order to direct their lives towards things that both make a contribution to the world and make them happy and successful. So I call this the cultural trance. Everywhere you look, if you start to understand this, you can see the cultural trance that teaches and conditions and rewards us to actually not practice 100% responsibility, but instead to simply be good, do as we're supposed to.
Right. Now, earlier we talked about the three different keys to responsibility: intention, awareness, and confront. And I like how you guide each reader that they should have the right mental state to address the frustrating or upsetting experience. Now, in one of your passages, you say that, if I can quote you, so when you are upset, learn to ask yourself where I am in the responsibility process. Then check whether you're in blame, justify, shame, obligation, or quit. Why have intention as the first key and responsibility awareness as the second key, and not the other way around? Or is it a progression from first key to the second key, or it's a combination of both?
Yes, good question. I think, the three keys are interrelated. And, I'm not sure that I can convince anybody that there's an exact right order of the three keys. The reason that I order them the way I do is that the awareness key and the confront key don't matter if you don't have an intention to get to the mental state of responsibility around problems and upsets in your life. So I say that intention is the first key. And for me, my intention is that I want to overcome every frustration, every upset, every challenge in my life as rapidly as possible, because that's where the freedom of mind is, that's where the personal power is, that's where the opportunity to create choices lies. And if I don't have that intention, then it doesn't matter whether I know where I am here or not. You know, if someone says, I know I'm in blame and I don't care, right, then they're not going to change. But there are people who want to tell me that we should reorder the keys to put awareness first because awareness is so popular as, I can't think of the gentleman's name now, but the person who's quoted as saying that, you know, awareness is the first step to change. Yeah.
No,
So,
thank you for that.
So that's my reasoning. That's my reasoning, and I won't spend any time arguing with anybody about it.
Now, as I read your book, you said that claiming wins is a foundational practice for responsibility. Basically, I started painting recently. Now, as I was preparing for the interview, first I was going to tell the audience what was the famous painting that I was going to reproduce, but then I thought about it and said, you know what, why don't I have like a little competition and see, because some of the sections have like a dozen or so overlays, and see if I show the progression, see if whoever is going to be first is going to recognize the painting. So that's going to be for later portion.
Okay.
But can you explain why is claiming the wins is a foundation practice for responsibility?
Sure. So for many years I've practiced with every team that I've worked with, I've practiced a ritual, a ceremony at the beginning of every meeting. And that ceremony is to go around and have everyone claim or report or share a win or an acknowledgement. So an acknowledgement is like being grateful for something that happened that you might not have had any intention around. A win is defined as an intention met. An intention met. So if one of the things that we're practicing to practice responsibility is to live intentionally, to actually build up our willpower and our ability to point ourselves in the direction of our dreams and things that make us happy and make a contribution to society at the same time, then what I notice is that part of the cultural trance is that we spend a lot of time every day unconsciously claiming losses. Right? So, you know, we do a lot of complaining to each other. And, you know, we complain about the traffic and we complain about the culture and we complain about the build breaking and we go, right? We have lots of emotional expression of losing, of not being happy, of being frustrated and things going wrong. And the truth is that if you're more than if you've been making your own decisions in your life for more than a few years, you're the architect of your own reality, which means you're actually choosing a reality of focusing on losing, of focusing on complaining, of focusing on thinking that the world is against you, of focusing on what's happening with the wind instead of what you're doing with the sail.
Yeah.
And so the practice of winning is simply to remind ourselves of the fact that most moments of the day, we are getting our intentions met. We are experiencing exactly what we intend to be experiencing. And so that's why it's a fundamental or a foundational practice to the practice of responsibility, is that we need to realize how much we are at cause in our own experience of the world.
True.
And our cultural trance teaches us to focus on the causes out there rather than the causes in here of our own world, our own reality. So that's the practice of WINS. And I and many of my students, lots and lots of members of the Leadership Gift Program, which you mentioned, we have a practice of, some of us do it first thing in the morning before we even get out of bed. So every morning before I get out of bed, I think of 5 wins from yesterday. And a win doesn't have a size, right? So a win is simply an intention met, right? So, you know, yesterday I intended to get up in time to make a great breakfast of bacon and eggs, and I did, and that's a win.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a, you know, gargantuan thing. And so for me to think of 5 wins from yesterday before I get out of bed sets a mindset for the day. Oh yeah, I am in charge of my day. And I am in charge of what I experienced today. And I am in charge of whether I'm paying attention to the wind or whether I'm paying attention to setting the sail. So that's the WINS practice.
Mm-hmm. I totally love it. Now, Christopher, I like how you, in your conclusion on the Road to the Mastery chapter, you write, think of someone you're harshly judging at the moment. Right. It might be even yourself. Now you ask us to consider that we are merely humans and that there's nothing wrong with them or yourself. You pose the question, does considering this changes your thoughts about how to handle the situation? All this is just reinforced me that when I started my writing careers about wanting to provide all the wonderful stuff that I learned about mindset, mind mapping or mind journey, and bringing like successful behavior practices of experts and leaders. And now I'm including your responsibility process in what it takes to succeed, and I thank you for that. So keep on doing what you're doing. Now, my other question would be, other than your responsibility process book, is there another book that had a big impact on you that you would recommend to my audience?
Sure. First of all, I would say if people are interested in this idea, I highly recommend that they get the book, as well as it's a great companion to the Teamwork as an Individual Skill book, because I actually first published the responsibility process in that book in a small way. You know, I was going through my bookshelves earlier today, and one of the books that had a huge effect on me is this book called Strategy of the Dolphin, Scoring a Win in a Chaotic World. And what's amazing about it is that it teaches us that that playing win-win always leads to better outcomes for everybody. But that you can't play win-win unless you're also really good at playing win-lose. Because if you only run around saying win-win, win-win, then you'll turn into shark bait for, you know, the sharks that are out there waiting to pounce. But if you always operate with a fear and scarcity and a lack of trust that you're going to get taken advantage of, then you'll never play win-win.
No, that's true.
Right. So the Strategy of the Dolphin is a wonderful story that says that dolphins just want to play. right? When you see videos of dolphins, they just want to play and commune and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know that generally, if a dolphin gets confronted by a shark and they have a fight, guess who wins?
The dolphin.
The dolphin, right? Because the dolphin is better at fighting than the shark is, and the dolphin is, but the dolphin says no. Let's play win-win. Let's play win-win. Let's play win-win. But if you come after me, you are going to lose.
You're going to lose. That's true.
Right. So what the dolphin does is can move faster than the shark, and the dolphin essentially collapses the shark's cartilage in the side with its nose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a fascinating book about a personal mindset for living that for me is one of tremendous integrity and personal responsibility.
That's right. Now, if you have one message that everyone would be able to see, what would that be?
There are so many. At this moment, I would say to you that you and I are more powerful than we usually give ourselves credit for. Right? So the magic of the responsibility process is that when we see that catching ourselves in blame or justify or shame or one of these other mental states is a tremendous opportunity to learn and to grow, then you'll start to see how powerful you are in creating both the negativity in your world as well as the positive or good things, and you'll see how you can overcome those challenges or those obstacles. So let's leave it at that. You're amazingly powerful.
That's true.
And I love you, and I want you to learn that.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, is there anything else that you wanted to add that we didn't discuss?
Amazon.com or wherever books are sold, right? Yep. If you read it and think it's deserving, I'd love to leave a positive review. If you'd like to download a PDF of this full-color poster, you can print and post these around, and it's got all the main teaching points on the back. You can do that at ChristopherAvery.com/poster. ChristopherAvery.com/poster. And if you're interested in learning about the Leadership Gift Program, just go over to the URL the.leadershipgift.com. So the.leadershipgift.com.
Now, where would people go, other than those other sites, to learn more about you, or if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, through ChristopherAvery.com. There's a contact section there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Do you have like an actionable ask that you would like to ask of my audience?
Yeah, start practicing.
Sure.
Yeah, start practicing. Start practicing small. Practice on small irritations.
Right. That's true.
And build those muscles of intention, awareness, and confront. and then you'll get to the point where you can change even the ugliest, deepest patterns in your life that you think have you trapped.
I totally agree. Thank you, Christopher, for being my guest. Thank you for writing such a phenomenal book. And I hope you join me again at WITS, What It Takes to Succeed. And to my audience, please subscribe to WITS, like, share the links, comment what you want to learn more about it. That way I can bring you more leaders like Christopher and provide the insights to help you succeed. Thank you. I wish to succeed, and until next time.
Thank you.